All right. So we've learned a lot so far this unit about light and how it interacts with materials. And really, our main question has been through this whole unit, what's going on in this room with one-way mirror where we have a student and a teacher and they're seeing different things. So we're going to create a revised model, kind of try to incorporate everything that we know so far, and see if we are at or close to an answer. So we're going to call this a revised model. Remember, a model is just a way of representing something too big, or too small, or too complex to actually put in real life. So couple of things that we need to remember in our model, we had light on in the student's room, our student. We said it was important to have this light on, important to have his eyeball, and we thought that it was important to have this light off in the teacher's room, include the teacher's eyeball, right? And we include the eyeballs because we learned that in order for us to see something, light has to travel from a source, in this case, our light. Just make this a pink yellow source. All right, so in order for light to, for us to see something, light has to travel from the source to an object, then it bounces off the object. In this case, the object is the student, hits the one-way mirror, and reflects back to that student, right? That's how we represent someone sees something. It goes into their eye. So light source, object, receptor, which is the eyeball. Okay, so this is how the student sees himself. How does the teacher see the student? Well, we learned that the one-way mirror is actually made up of some clear material and some solid material or mirror material. And so we're going to represent that here in our model now that we know some things about it. So remember, we learned in our reading that the one-way mirror is made up of a clear, usually glass backing, and then it sort of has a like checkerboard mirror stuff, board mirror material, so that some light reflects off and some light passes through. So we're going to represent that in nice and clear. And I think at this point, since we have different colors and different materials, we're going to want to include that in our model. So we're gonna write a key here down, key of material. All right, and so this pinkish orange is going to be mirror or reflective, and our blue is going to be transparent. Also learned through an investigation that in fact, when light hits, when this light right here hits the one-way material, about half of it goes through and half bounces off. So half of it transmits through, half of it bounces off. At this point, then, we know, because we know that some light is becoming less, we might want to represent that in our model. And so I'm going to run the key. All right, so the key of light. And I think we'll just go ahead and represent our light right now. So a solid line would be all light. represent half the light. Maybe a dotted line or a dashed line. So I'm going to say most or half the light. I'm going to make it even less, so because maybe we'll see that some light is split even more. So smaller dashes will represent some light. And just in case you need it, or just put little tiny dashes or dots. And we're going to say that is representing little light. All right. So now I think it's important that we represent while the teacher sees the student. So take our yellow, light comes from the source, bounces off the object. The student heads towards the mirror or the one-way mirror, and now we know about half of it transmits through and hits the teacher's eye. And now we can say about, we'll change that into a dashed line. About half of it comes back or reflects and hits the student's eye. So they are both seeing the student. Now, I think at this point it might be useful for us to think, okay, light actually travels from that light source in many directions, not just straight down at the student. So if we were to present another path of light, maybe coming at this angle, how could we do that? Well, if it came off this angle, it would hit the mirror. What would it do next? Right, about half of it would reflect, and about half of it would transmit. Now, let's go even further. When this transmitted light, of these paths of light, when they hit this teacher, they're not just going to stop. In fact, they're going to bounce off the teacher or reflect off the teacher back toward the one-way mirror. So how can we represent this? Well, I'm going to now a key of what is seen. And we'll use different colors here. I'm going to use pink, student. And I'm going to use green for teacher. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this. I think that's going to be helpful. Starting with the path of light that hits the student. Comes down from the light source, hits the object. At this point, it takes on the student's image. All right. All right. Half of it transmits through. So this teacher is seeing the student. That reflects back. So the student is seeing himself. But now, let's add in the teacher. So when this light here hits the teacher, it's going to reflect off her. And about the same amount will reflect off her. It will hit the one-way mirror. And again, now we're going to cut it in half. Some of that light will reflect back. We'll say kind of towards the teacher's eyes. And the other will transmit through. This is interesting, right? Because now we can see that both teacher and the student should be represented in what they see. But we know that the student sees himself and the teacher only sees the student. So what is going on? Well, I think it could be helpful to use one of our blow-ups. We talked about blow-ups in the last lesson, right? And just kind of look at the eye. What's happening in the eye? All right, and we'll do the same for her. And so we're getting about one of these most light lines hitting his eye with his own reflection. All right, she's getting the same, about half the light hitting her eye for his reflection. And then she's getting about, oh, just a small amount, little light from her own reflection. And he's getting a little light from his reflection. All right, so two sources, both hitting the eyeballs. One has a little bit more, the other one has less. So this leads us to the question. Why don't their brains see the image of the teacher and themselves? What's going on with that? That's what we're going to explore a little bit today.